Hello, everyone. Thanks for giving us your time today for VR Gamescast. I'm Ian Hamilton in New York, joined by Don Hopper in Missouri. As oh goodness, I'm getting a feedback of the. That's great, of course. I don't know why I'm getting a feedback. Hold on one second here. Why is that
Well,
coming in?
it wouldn't be a VR Gamescast
Yeah,
if we didn't
right.
start with a little hiccup, you know?
Yeah. All
So,
right. Let me start that over now that I no longer hearing an echo of myself in my own ear. Hello, everyone. Thanks for giving
take
us
two.
your time today for VR Gamescast. I'm Ian Hamilton in New York, joined by Don Hopper in Missouri, as we discuss all the ways people are playing games in headsets and glasses. We're live today on YouTube, October 1st, 2024, with Beck broadcasting for us today from a PC up there in Canada. I'm just back from MetaConnect last week trying to get caught up here, and we've got a great show for you today. In case you're new here, Don and I are wearing Quest 3 headsets with our audio routed through external microphones. Our head and hand movements are tracked by the headsets, and we're wearing meta avatars to put the show together from inside the UploadVR recording studios. Thank you so much to our patrons and members for supporting our work directly. Don, what do we have today?
Well, Ian, this week I know I am, and I know our audience can't wait to hear about what you saw and experienced while you were away at MetaConnect. So, super excited for all the news about that. And then I think after we get through MetaConnect, I think we'll, just kind of recap a few of the top articles on the site from the last week since our last show. I know there was a couple of really interesting things that I wanted to bring up. And then I think we're going to dive deeper into mixed reality as we talk about Starship's home release. I did tease that last week, and I know we had my review drop. And then we're going to talk about other great MR titles that are out there, and then shift gears back into a topic that we did cover recently, but we found a little bit more to talk about. And that's the subject of digital pets and limited FOV and AR glasses versus the wider FOV of mixed reality headsets. So let's kick this off. I'm dying to hear about all the great stuff you saw at Connect. So what did you see while you were out there?
Oh goodness. Let's should I talk about what I didn't see, right?
This was well,
Yeah.
yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, that too.
Yeah, it was a very, very interesting event. I actually spent a fair amount of my time on the way to Connect writing from inside the headset using
Hmm.
the exact same setup I'm using right now. I've got my HDMI link routed into my headset, so I've got my phone up here floating right in front of me with my Gmail window up so I can see any incoming emails while I'm here in the studio with anyone. So if anyone wants to distract me with an interesting email, you can go find my email in my Twitter handle and then send me an email while we're inside of here with interesting news to break. So I spent a good, what was it, 8 hours on a bus ride just writing, and
Hmm.
I wrote an article about that. And then I got to MetaConnect and I did the same thing. I set up on their campus there and had my little pocket keyboard and wrote an article from Meta's event. And what that allowed me to do is it was one of the first times I've ever written an article. I mean, it was the first time I've written an article from VR at an event. And what it allowed me to do was actually go out and meet with people that night rather than going back to my hotel room and writing, which is the typical way I attend most of these
Yeah.
events. I don't, I miss most of the social gatherings because that's the key time to go and actually write an article. Well, VR allowed me to switch that up a little bit on this trip because I was able to actually work inside my headset at the event. And then, yeah, I got to see the Quest 3S. And Resolution Games had an area where they were showing off some of their latest games. Interesting to try out Spatial Ops as well as Home Sports, their take on a Wii Sports kind of idea. Um, Let's see here. I'm curious if there's any specific comments. I wanted to talk about Subcog's comment at the beginning here, where he says, "Hello." Where was it? How do you do, my fellow kids? I like that way
I do.
of
I love that.
yeah. And then Arlen, I love Arlen's comments. We got Arlen following us on most social networks now with really great commentary and questions week in and week out. So it's great to see you, Arlen, as part of this conversation. And then I'm seeing ABC asking, did Renji from Immerse get to meet with you on your trip?
Yes.
Yes. I was originally going to take a bus back out of Connect last week. And then Renji Bajoy, the CEO of Immersed, basically said they were going to be in the area of Connect and giving demos of whatever state they are right now. And so I changed my exit plan and got a flight instead from San Francisco to LA instead of the bus from San Jose to LA. And then I stuck around for a couple extra hours and got to see that demo. Um, I know people are going to be aching for hearing how that went, but I'm going to hold on to that. I need to compare
Yeah.
notes with David Heaney. We've got our VR download show on Thursdays, which is the right venue for us to get into that sort of thing. Uh, I'll reiterate what David put in his previous article, that we cannot recommend you put in your pre-order for this device. We do not. That's what David wrote in his last article about the Merged headset, and uh,
Mhm.
that still stands. As of
Yeah,
right now, we don't have any update yet, and we will have one soon.
I've been tracking that thing for a while, and I can't wait to hear you guys get into a deeper discussion on Thursday because it's definitely a subject that's on a lot of people's minds right now. Is what's up with Visor? But I mean, obviously this show's gaming focused, so I know you said you saw Spatial Ops, you saw the home sports. Did you see any other games out there?
Yeah, so like I said, I saw those few. I played some Batman Arkham Shadow in the Quest 3S. That was basically how I spent
So
all
you
of my
finally got to
time.
play it.
Yeah,
Okay, awesome.
I got the time, and there's this in the game. There's this very this gesture you always come back to, where you as Batman reach to your sides to grab his cape, and then
Mhm,
pull it out like Batman, and coast
mhm.
from place to place
I
across
love the
the city.
gliding. Yeah, when you
I
glide,
only
it's so awesome.
I only used it in the subways, or in the subterranean areas, the sewers, right?
Mhm.
And it was still cool to go from place to place, and just that it's such a silly gesture, right? I'm Batman, and it's just like you're grabbing your cape
But it
to fly from
feels
place,
cool.
but it feels
Yeah.
amazing, right?
Oh, it feels great. So what did you I mean, I don't wanna derail us, but since now we've both tried Batman and, I mean, I gave my impressions, which some people kind of found a little interesting. What did you think of the combat?
Oh, I didn't get far enough to really feel like it was that was all I did, was go around the sewers in 3S
Mhm.
basically, and it was like an
Okay.
introductory sort of getting your feel for some of the gestures. So I'm gonna need to give it a bigger. I'm gonna have to
Okay.
see how that, and you even are gonna have to put more time
Oh,
into
definitely.
it to really get
Yeah,
a feel
definitely.
for how
Fair
this
enough.
game feels over the length. But it was an interesting idea. Like I did feel embodied as
Mhm.
Batman instantaneously, seeing your shadow on the ground with your little pointy ears, as we reported
Mhm.
exclusively at UploadVR about the real time shadows. All
Yeah.
of that was really really great there.
Well,
Um,
Arlen here, he's gotta know. Did you say it?
I thought it the moment I think I uttered it under my breath, because the moment it happened about the second or third time as you pull the cape from the sides, where you really realize, oh, I have to grab the cape down at
Mhm.
my sides, pull it up like this, and that's when you start seeing the shadows come out on your sides in connection with grabbing the cape. That's when you start feeling it in your soul that I am
Yeah.
Batman. Um,
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I knew this was going to be a system seller, and obviously now it really is going to be a system seller. I mean, coming with every Quest 3 and Quest 3S. So, really huge news on that.
Yeah, so I did meet some of the VR influencers. Very cool to meet them. Very great people
My, my
to
people.
meet and go face to face. It's funny to see all these people from their streams, right? And then you see them face to face and recognize them from the streams. It's very strange sort of effect. It was neat to see all those people. It was also a
Real quick,
different
I gotta
sort of
say,
event. This
I
was
just want
my
to say I missed you all. I missed you all, everybody. I know I've gotten a lot of message from a lot of the influencers out there. Sorry I couldn't be there, but man, looks like everybody had a great time.
Well,
So,
I'm going to throw this out there that, everyone, I think, I think the general consensus is that Meta knocked it out of the park
oh,
when it
huge.
comes to hyping people for what they're doing, making clear that they're trying to fix some of the things that they've caused in the past. There was a big speech up there uh, on stage where they made clear that the shifting sands of the Horizon OS platform aren't going to be shifting quite so much in the future. They're trying to send a signal that there's there's a solid ground to stand on for developing for VR on Meta devices. The thing that I'm hearing from devs, and we'll have to get into it in different parts of the show on some of this content, is the mixed reality devs are actually fairly frustrated, from my understanding, with the limits that they're encountering in Meta's tools for mixed reality. So we're seeing it in both Vision Pro and we're seeing it in MetaQuest, where devs are building mixed reality apps that use your environment in various ways. But things like Laser Dance
Mhm.
we don't have uh, any timeline for release of Laser Dance. And for those that aren't familiar what Laser Dance is, it's this brilliant, brilliant game where you walk from one wall to another and you've got lasers cutting through your space, just like the movies, and you have to get past the lasers to the opposite wall and press the button that's on the opposite wall. Well, you can't have the walls drift. You can't have the button
Oh, no.
recede into the wall halfway through your game session. And Meta's tools for mixed reality can't let that happen. Like you can't build a whole game where the button disappears into the wall halfway through. That's to my understanding, Meta has to improve its tools so that never happens, so that games can actually use your environment really solidly. And that's one of the areas we're going to be watching really closely. When I tried the Snapchat spectacles a couple weeks back, they actually had a similar sort of issue. You look at across the room in one of those experiences, and the room mesh was off by about a few inches from where they were shown, like where it actually was. So here's this plant overlay, all these vines growing on the walls, but the walls aren't matched up to their physical location.
Mhm.
You can't design like that, breaks the illusion across the board in really awful ways, and that's even on AR glasses where you can't reskin the whole environment to begin with. Uh, Imagine what would happen in a game like Spatial Ops. So Spatial Ops was another one I tried over this, and uh, in Spatial Ops they didn't have the room meshes perfectly synced up between devices. So I went into this headset and there was like an offset on some of the physical objects in the room of about 2 inches, where you had like a barrier here. Imagine a big whiteboard that you could
Mhm.
mark on, and it was cool to take a gun out and shoot on the whiteboard and see bullets uh, go into the whiteboard as they're being overlaid. But if you look at the edges of the whiteboard, there's a mismatch between the like mask to cut out this whiteboard and the environment. And then as you see the other players running around, there's a slight little mismatch between where they're running around and where their bodies are. Well, you can't, if you ever think about a game like laser tag, right, over at your local cool laser tag place, right, you
Mhm.
have these sensors that you strap to your body. You put on their vest, you put on whatever, they're like a head strap maybe, and then you have these little itty bitty little sensors that are meant to see the lasers that are getting pointed at you by all these other people out in the game. Well, you start playing that game for, I don't know, 20 minutes, and you start realizing, well, what if I hold my arm over the sensor on my chest in order to block other players from hitting your body? It's like a cheaty. It's the same.
Oh, it's
It's the
so cheaty.
physical version of cheating, right? Of using the little cheats that you can use online. Um, that's what it feels like if the whole environment isn't perfectly synced up for every single person in the space. It feels like there's a mismatch between the hitboxes and like actually getting collisions with the other people. So it was enormously cool to like see the mixed reality environment, to feel confident in being able to walk from one location to another. But also there's this sense that like, how is this going to work in production scenarios where you've got to throw, I don't know, 15 people, 30 people an hour through this spatial ops experience with anchors that don't necessarily sync up between every person? How do they solidify that? So that's right around the corner, I think, from Resolution Games. We have to see how it lands. And then, Don, you did Starship Home recently, which
I
was its
did.
own mixed reality experience. We've had to assess how that worked out. I want to look at
And
the
same.
comments here, and I want to hear from
Yeah,
you a
no,
little bit.
absolutely. Well, I was gonna say, yeah, while you're looking through comments, I'll just do real quickly. I'll just do a quick rundown of those four stories from the site. We had a lot of news breaking on the site over the past week, and a lot of it was coming out of MetaConnect, but there were a few articles that caught our eye that I did want to highlight. So, the first up was obviously the big news that we talked about a minute ago is the fact that everyone who purchases a Quest 3 or Quest 3S is now going to get Batman Arkham Shadow for free. And if that wasn't good enough, you're also going to get a trial into Quest Plus. I believe it's a 3-month trial that you're going to get with the headset as well. So, you know, I remember getting my first headset and it was like, wow, what am I going to play on this? There wasn't a lot at the time, obviously, but it was like, man, I'm broke. I just spent all this money for the headset. Think about that. Now you are getting dropped into a universe with just tons of titles that you can kind of get onboarded with and get started out with. And then what even makes that better is that they're now adding Asgard's Wrath 2 to MetaQuest Plus. So not only are you getting Batman, you get MetaQuest Plus, and you're getting the number one biggest game on the Quest platform for Quest 3 and Quest 3S. So, there has never been a better time to jump into VR as a new user with Quest 3S or Quest 3. So, just blown away by that.
Yeah, and then the subscription, right? You combine subscription with the handouts
Hmm.
of Asgard's Wrath 2, and it
Yeah.
becomes an enormously tempting time to, when you go and get your Quest 3S, go sign up for the Quest
So
3,
many,
the
so many
Quest
kids are
Plus
going to get these
catalog.
at Christmas morning or whatever, and they're going to open this thing up, and they're not going to have that one cartridge. I remember I got my Atari on Christmas morning, and it's like, okay, well, my parents weren't the richest, so we got the console and we got one cartridge, and we had that one cartridge for like months until we could get another one. So just the ability to for new users to put the headset on for the first time, take it slow, by the way. Don't just because you got the keys to the candy store, don't rush in and try to do things that you might not have legs for yet. But the ability for you to jump in and try different genres, different types of games, really find your footing, really find what you like. I think that was a huge good ad for Meta to bring that to the Quest 3, Quest 3S.
Yeah, Quest 3S. So I put the headline out. I went hands on, and the headline was basically that I think the only surprise is going to be how many Meta sells, and we're
Yeah.
preaching to the choir on that one here with our audience of longtime viewers. I do thank you for the pitch to like and share this link out with others.
Yes. Thank you.
You are now the most experienced VR people in the world. This audience, you paid attention to us, listened to us as we've dived in deep across VR Download and VR Gamescast into all the ins and outs of everything that's going on. You are going to be the teachers of the next generation. You're going to help them find the right games, save that time, save that money, and get in deep into good VR experiences very, very quickly. So we hope to see you in the weeks ahead as we see that wave come through of people who are looking at this show and going, "What the heck
Mm.
is this?" Well, this is what's possible when you have avatars. This is the limits of how you can, how good they can be right now, and this is one of the
Right
things
now,
that's possible on
right?
headsets. So,
We might be
we
getting new avatars eventually,
oh yeah,
so
and we've got, and you as our audience know, there's also the personas out there, right? We've got the Apple Vision Pros at our fingertips,
mhm.
and we're not using them for a reason, because they're not moving the same kinds of numbers and not going to appeal to quite so many
Ooh.
people as you guys know these Quest 3 and Quest 3S's are going to hit.
Arlen had a great comment. He's just to me, he says, "Fun fact. I love trivia. I'm actually got a good trivia here later in the show. But fun fact: the Atari 2600, adjusted for inflation, that console was $1,000. So it really makes the Quest 3S at 300 an amazing price. I mean, I couldn't even imagine that my parents would have spent the equivalent of $1,000 for me to play tanks and airplanes and Space Invaders. I mean,
I'm
it just blows my mind now. So,
I'm seeing Ghost
but
Shot saying that they paid attention to all this since the 90s. We both did too. I think Don and
oh
I
yeah,
each tried one of those 90s
I
simulators
started.
that made the rounds from like malls and right. Like I remember going to a
Yeah,
mall and trying one of those
virtuality.
headsets. Yeah,
Yeah,
and Don,
virtuality.
it's
And
weird
then
to
I
like it sits in the back of your brain. Like it sat in the back of our brains probably
mhm.
for a very, very long time until
I've
decades
chased
later.
that dragon for 25 years. And I mean, I literally, and I know I've shared this personal story. I went and took out student loans and got myself in debt to buy my first VR headset in like 1997, that I paid off for like the next 20 years. So
Devin saying
it's,
they're jealous of the kids getting into VR this Quest miss.
I am too.
I,
I
I
am a little bit.
and I get that, and at the same time, there's going to be superpowers that you know about that you can help those new people get into.
True. True.
Getting your HDMI link into a headset, getting the room codes in your favorite game set up, so that you avoid getting annoyed by the public
Mhm.
spaces out there. There's lots of places you can help new VR people who are going to be like enjoying that wave, and you're going to be jealous of them as their first VR experience being this moment. Like you've been through hell if you've been through the last 10 years of
I'm
VR
not going to say
development. All
jealous.
Imagine all those people that like Don, you had an Oculus Home. Did any of those people out there lose their Oculus
No.
Homes over the years? Like that's tragedy to think about. And then there's
Thanks for
people
that,
that
man. Now,
never
now,
saw that, right?
Now I feel the knife going right back in my chest that my custom Oculus Home that I spent out days just taking blocks. I built walls inside my Oculus Home using the blocks. I maxed out the number of characters you could have in there. But it's definitely I'm gonna rephrase. I'm not jealous. I'm envious
Mm.
because the new users are going to get to see the magical mind-blowing stuff that we envisioned we were going to see the first time we put on those headsets in the 90s, and they're going to drop into that headset and actually get that kind of what the media has force fed them over the years to think what VR is going to be like and what it's going to, like what you see in movies and TV. And, obviously it's never going to be that, but we're not Ready Player One yet, folks, but
Well,
we're getting there.
there's a lot of
Oh,
really, really interesting things to think about. If you take a step back and view it view what's happened here on the scale of 3 to 4 or 5 years, you had
mhm.
the Quest 2 in 2020 sell upwards of 20 million plus headsets over the course of its lifetime, 3 to 4 years. Now it's going to be 4 years total that the Quest 2 was on the market, and for a large, large portion of the time that that device was on the market, Meta has signaled that they were doing upgrades, that they were going to
Mm.
dramatically outstrip what that device was capable of. And yes, it sold to children. Yes, there were a lot of kids getting into Gorilla Tag and all those free experiences that are available right at the outset of of the system. But what's so fascinating is it's not just the upgrades, the hardware upgrades, that is going to anchor this next phase. It's software. Meta has unlocked software in multiple ways. They use the phrase cured curation over at the Connect conference, right? Of course, they instituted curation themselves, and then they're saying we also cured curation, like a disease they inflicted upon themselves and then cured for themselves. Was the way I took that. And here we are, where you've just got a flood of content that's hitting MetaQuest headsets in every way, shape, and form. 2 weeks ago, we wrote about Pencil. Uh, we're going to keep writing about Pencil, and
Oh, I
I've
love
got
pencil.
nonstop ideas just flowing in where um, ideas that were just absurd because the software was so locked down are now easy to do in VR. And so, like, it's magic happening left and right on a software side, and it's getting combined with this Quest 3, Quest 3S push. This is all to say that I think we're going to see a lot of surprises from people who realize you can actually work in these things, and there's major,
Oh yeah.
major benefits to bringing HDMI link or remote desktop into the headset and having that private head mounted display wherever you are.
You've proven that time and time again over the weeks and months that we've been doing all you've been experimenting with all the multiplayer and like you said, I mean the well actually I'm going to bring that back. So did you get any interesting looks on the plane or the bus with all
Um,
the interconnectivity and the
Yeah, no. The most interesting looks I got was at MetaConnect when I was
Okay.
dog fooding myself at the actual
Yeah,
event. Like,
yeah.
you go find Zim Talk's video out there. There's a video of me in my setup with my
So see,
wire pile over next to me and my phone laying flat as it is right now on my table. And like that's what gets
I'm
me
still
about it is that shouldn't have been unusual for Meta, right? Like that site should be pretty commonplace if Meta employees truly believe in the products that they're actually working on. Like HDMI links should be all over the place over there.
I still think you missed a grand opportunity though. You should have walked around all the social events going, I am Ian of Upload. All of your games and all of your games and technology will adapt to service us.
Yeah,
But
I definitely felt like that. I do want people to I wanted to set an example there of like this isn't so people looked at me and go and there's this very real comment that's like, when do you realize that a laptop is just easier? When can you argue that a laptop is the better setup than what I was trying to do? And I think I wrote about it in an article, but how many of you out there have taken a Waymo self-driving car? Have you done one yet, Don?
I have not. I so every time I go I where they are, I want it so bad, but never have been able to get the invite. So
Yeah, so I went to a movie and I saw one of the Waymos doing a pickup in downtown Los Angeles as I was doing my ride through, and I was like, oh, I really need to see what a self-driving car feels like, and so I reached out to my network and I got one of the invites to Waymo and got into the car after the movie and took a Waymo to where I was staying. Took a self-driving car to where I was staying, and then the next day I did another one, and I had for that ride I had my bag set up. I had my portable VR headset system where the headset's in the bag, the capture card's in the bag, my phone's ready to be piped in. And it was only a 15-minute ride from where I was staying to the train station. But if that had been over an hour long ride, if it had been about an
oh
hour and a
yeah.
half to 2 hours, that would have crossed the threshold to being a useful amount of time to pull my headset out, pull out the keyboard, and write a few emails or write a couple articles for all of you out there from a self-driving car. And I'm sorry, but that's the future we all should be working
Oh,
towards.
big time.
I'm not. How do we get to that future where we're taking vehicles that drive us where we want to go and we're using VR headsets on the way to get there? Like it's a match made in heaven. It's always been a match made in heaven, and
Oh,
it's just a matter of time for us all to get on the same page that this is actually going to happen. This is no longer science fiction, and we all need to kind of like figure out the right way to do all this stuff. I'm seeing the videos pop up of all the people standing in front of the Waymos now and
mhm.
actually uh, creating human interference on purpose for these self-driving cars, which is a fascinating thing to change
Family
to
trips
see.
will never be the same once we all get self-driving cars. So okay, well, kind of getting back into the articles real quick, if you want to chat. I just wanted to kind of finish this section up here. So, another game that is coming that got announced during MetaConnect that I am super excited for is Triangle Strategy. I love old school JRPGs, especially anything from Square Enix, and I was blown away to see that Square Enix is finally jumping into VR, into the Quest. They're going straight into Quest. I really figured we would see a Square Enix VR title prior to this, but here we are. So, Triangle Strategy, I'm not too familiar with this one. I'm more of a Final Fantasy fan. So, I really hope this is going to bring some of that nostalgia for that simpler time of turn based RTS. I know this one's more strategy based. And speaking of simpler times, here's my little bit of trivia for today. Do you know why they call it Final Fantasy?
I do not.
I do not.
Yeah.
Okay. I wonder if I ought to open that one up to the audience for a minute because it's kind of some deep trivia about Square if you don't really know. But the reason that Final Fantasy got its name was that Square back in the day with Final Fantasy One, or I guess whatever they called it in the Japan release, was on the verge of closing, and that was
Mm.
going to be their last game. So they
Mm.
were going to go out with a bang, and they decided it was going to be their Final Fantasy, and that is why we have the name Final Fantasy for that series. So,
This is going to be an interesting one to watch because of how direct of a port it is. That's one of the things
mhm.
that we're watching, and I think it's fascinating to see the breadth of reactions here. Where it's like, if you come over to the Apple Vision Pro ecosystem and see some of the things that they're releasing over there, one of the things that made one of our headlines last week was Flappy Experience, which is literally
Yes.
just Flappy Bird like this, and you've got the tubes coming at you as you're doing this for the Flappy Bird.
Mhm.
Like that's an adaptation, just like so many other adaptations are happening in VR. It's really wild to see a $3,500 headset test out experiences like Flappy Experience, which is adapting an age old thing, and then over on the MetaQuest ecosystem you have everything being tried, right? You've got Team Beef doing some really cool stuff. Is Team Beef on
Oh
our
yeah.
lineup here, Don?
They are not. I don't know how that slipped me. Beef Raider 1.0 is out. So I am working on an article for that as we speak. Once we get out of the show, I'll probably be wrapping some of that up today. But yes, if you are not familiar with it, I do have some coverage on Upload. We have a video here on the YouTube channel. If you have not played it, this is the coolest way you will ever play Tomb Raider. So
Yeah,
definitely check out Beef Raider XR
yeah.
in its full release.
And I like that as
So.
the that's the opposite end example of this, right? Like that's a community grown project. You need to go and get the
Mhm.
original game files from
You
a
do.
copy of the game to insert into this mod, and then once you do, you can play the game in an extraordinary number of ways, right? It's just magic to
Absolutely.
explore all of that. And then
That
right, I think the lesson here is, 2024, 2025 VR and mixed reality is not what we saw in 2020 or
oh,
2018 or
no.
2016. Devs have been hard at work, and I don't even just mean devs, fans have been hard at work trying to figure out all the ways to bring all of those games back to life inside VR headsets, and they are making magic. So I can't wait to see all the
It's just
different things.
it's an exciting time. I mean, I've said it 1,000 times, and I'll say it again. These modders are bringing us the full scale VR that we've been praying for a while. I mean, and that's not to say we don't have full screen, full huge games that are on the systems now or on the horizon. I mean, the one that I'm going to talk about next is kind of unfortunate. Behemoth got delayed. I mean, that's going to be a huge title for VR.
Well,
But
I was going to throw
it,
this idea out there to this audience, this unique Gamescast audience. Uh, what did you think in terms of what games were announced by Meta last week? And I want to take a deep
mm,
breath there as you think and search your memory for the games that were announced last week, because I don't have a lot in my head. What do you have in your head, Don?
no, I don't. And you've already hit the three. I mean, that's, I remember going out to OC5 when they first announced Quest, and there were so many games at that show on the floor. It was like going to a little mini Gamescom almost. And it does seem like this year was a lot more hardware focused. I didn't see a lot of huge gaming news coming out other than, Batman coming with 3S and, the games that you have already mentioned and tried. So
Yes,
definitely would love to see more gaming focus come back to Connect.
and that's the idea that I wanted to sort of let simmer inside of everyone's heads as we think about it. Right, here's this event that got everyone in the world psyched for Meta. Right, they got them excited for this idea that AR glasses are actually going to happen, while at the same time there was no Grand Theft Auto sized announcement
Mm-mm.
out of this event. There was no thing to think about hitting Meta headsets next year that is enormously big. Now that there's plenty of reasons for that, right? Like they had other priorities to get across during this event, but I do think it is something for us to note and think about, right? I had face-to-face interactions with Meta PR over this event, and it was wild to see them divide up AR and VR um, into divisions more formally here. I've given this comment out in multiple places, and I want to reiterate it to you here. VR is now a maturing business inside of Meta. It is
It is.
those are now the elder members of the Reality Labs team. They're the most experienced, and it's the most established market. And Meta just made a whole bunch of people believe, for better or worse, that those devices are just a stopgap measure, that they're like all going to disappear in a couple of years and be replaced by AR glasses. And we've got editorials that explain why that is stupid if you think that, why that's
Oh yeah.
wrong, and that's based in a poor understanding of the underlying technology here and how it works. And what we're actually, the larger thing to think about here is that Meta has sold tens of millions of VR headsets. They have sold tens of millions of Quest VR headsets specifically. And now they have $300 Quest 3S, $400 Quest 3S, and $500 Quest 3 with 512 gigabytes of storage. They've got the Quest Plus subscription program, and they have bundles to throw at you left and right. They have like what they crushed Pico so bad
Oh, big
in
time.
the last phase, and now they're just hitting the gas pedal even stronger. Like that was the only competition they had, the only real competition they had during the last round when they crushed everyone with Quest 2, and now they've got 3 and 3S. And think about it, right? You combine all of these things, the software getting better, the bundle becoming extraordinarily more valuable almost overnight, and the power that's all being brought to bear. It's going to make eyes water. It's going to crush
Oh God.
some expectations out of the water for how big VR is going to be. And it's gonna, this cognitive dissonance that's happening in our audience where it's like, I'm confused. You said AR was the future. Why are VR heads? Why am I seeing them on trains and planes and buses now?
Yeah.
We're supposed to skip straight to glasses. Oh
Well,
God, why is the
that's
world
not
ending?
going to happen. I mean, that's not going to happen for quite a while. I mean, yes, we have Birdbath Optics AR glasses out there, but we're not going to see anything like Orion for years. I mean, years and years. And people need to get that through their head. It's a completely different thing. But being a completely different thing, that's a really good discussion for you and David on Thursday.
Yep.
So,
Yeah, we'll
I
get into
can't
this
wait
much
to hear
more.
all about
Yep.
Orion, man. I mean, that is like I'm an AR enthusiast. I am chomping at the bit because I do want AR glasses, but I want AR glasses that I go whoop, they completely darken and then they just become a VR headset. I want it all. I want that glasses form factor that gives me the experience I'm having right now in a Quest 3, and then the electrochromic film raises, and then bam, now it's AR. I mean, and we're going to get there, but it's
Mm,
not going to happen anytime soon.
I mean, that's
So,
the Don's describing one path. I don't know. Like Don, I don't. The thing. So we'll see, right? It's just one of the things. So The Verge put out its headline review of the Vision Pro, and we will get into this on Thursday with David. But if you go back and read the Vision Pro review from The Verge, there was this section in the review where they questioned the idea that pass through was like a dead end, or maybe it's like this is the best pass through that's ever been invented, and it's still not quite where it needs to be. That was a very interesting concept to think of back when Vision Pro debuted at $3,500. But it was still, you saw it in our write up, you saw it in everything that we broke down. They threw everything they possibly could at this $3,500 device, and it was still like bare bones first generations of everything. There was clear paths from what they launched to improvements across the board. And I don't know, it's just silly to think of all these. We just had a headline out today that Windows mixed reality headsets are all
Yes.
getting, essentially. Well, we're going to have to find out exactly how bricked they become, but
We're working
the
on that
new
actually.
the new Windows 11 update doesn't support Windows mixed reality. And if you think back, that's they used the term Windows mixed reality, and then they
Mhm.
shipped an entire range of headsets that had a flashlight, a black and white flashlight that you could pull out to look at your room through mixed reality. And they said, we're done.
Yeah.
We're not going to add
No.
color. We're not going to add high resolution. This is the best we're going to get out of Windows mixed reality on this platform before they just tossed in the towel.
Oh,
So
and it
like,
could have been so much more. It could have been so much more.
yeah.
I mean, Microsoft really could have run with Windows mixed reality, and especially now that they're discontinuing HoloLens. I mean, they that could have been their thing to finally get some of that HoloLens tech technology to the consumers. So,
Sorry about
but
my audio this week. I don't know what's wrong. I am doing everything Beck told me to out there.
we are so trying, guys,
Yeah,
so
it's
trying to get Ian's audio. Hey, there's Beck.
all right. Let's
So,
try. All
well,
right,
while
let's
you
see if
guys work on that, let me get back into the last couple of topics here, so we can move on to the fun stuff. So, as I teased just a minute ago, Behemoth has been delayed. Now, that is a game that I am super looking forward to. I mean, obviously, I love games that play with a sense of scale, and this one looks like it's going to do that on steroids. And it is a bummer to see it get delayed, but in a way, and I know this is going to sound kind of weird, I'm happy to see it delayed. And I'll tell you why. Because every time we see this, that means that QC did its job and they found something that they want to polish, and because they want to put out the absolute best mind-bending experience that you're gonna have. So I applaud the developers for pulling it back, and I really, put it back in the oven, let it bake a little bit longer until it is ready. I mean, that has always been my stance on that.
a lot of people in the comments debating the paths forward. We will definitely get into that on VR download. That's a ripe discussion for us to have over there.
Oh,
And I
big
think
time.
you're discussing the right things to think about. Big Screen Beyond is a very fascinating headset out there. If you're unfamiliar, it's $1,000 Steam VR powered headset with
Mhm.
just they've stripped everything out of that device to put the lightest amount on your face possible. The facial interface is custom cut to your face shape, and that's the product line that Big Screen shipped. Well, it's fascinating to see some of the decisions the Big Screen made play out across things like Apple Vision Pro or MetaQuest. Um, you know, Big Screen couldn't get mass market in its first product, but they did build a product for a very, very specific audience. And it's not the same audience that Meta was targeting with its products.
Oh, no.
So,
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, they were really kind of, I almost kind of saw Beyond as a little bit more of an experimentation project, to see how small can we get a VR headset to be, and still maintain quality. Now, I have personally never tried it. I have been uber curious about that headset. I do simulator gaming, and that's a huge use case for that is to have the lightest, less obtrusive, headset on your head when you're in a motion simulator, because they do tend to flop around a lot. So having that lightweight and that very small form factor would be huge for that.
I've lost track of where we are on the show. I'm gonna need Don to keep us on track and moving through
Sure.
the
No, I
show
got I
here.
got
But
one more thing I wanted to talk about
yeah,
gaming wise, and then we were going to move into the Starship Home and start talking about digital pets. So,
yep. I definitely want to talk about Starship Home. I want to talk about Sampler's comment there when we get into Starship
oh yeah,
Home. Yeah,
yeah,
because
yeah.
yeah.
So last one for me, on the gaming rundown was one that just fell out of the blue. I mean, I'm over on Twitter the other day, won't call it X, and just all of a sudden I see this post from Casper Van Dien. I was like, where has he been for like all these years? And it's like, whoa, what is this? And they teased it. and it was, we are now getting a full Starship Troopers game in Quest, and I can't be more excited. I love that movie. I mean, NPH, Neil Patrick Harris, Casper Van Dien. I mean, so many big name stars kind of got their start with this. And, it's just insane to think that we are going to be going back to Clendathu and fighting the bugs, man. And not only we're going to be doing that, it's a co-op shooter. So, I mean, you're going to be able to squad up with a couple of your best friends and really go in there and tear it up. Now, what worries me with this, as it always is with movie based or television based IPs, is it going to suffer from the plague that we've seen over the years with developers relying too much on the fandom and the IP and not focusing enough on making the game great to begin with? So, jury's out. I am eagerly awaiting a preview key so that I can get in there and start working on a review. I will be doing a full review of this one for UploadVR.com. So keep your eyes on that. And all I can say is I just hope I get mini nukes. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, you got
oops.
double.
Yeah. After all these years, I still think about how Casper Van Dien should have picked Diz the whole time.
Yes, he should
Yeah,
have.
that was
Oh, she
wrong.
was great.
Yeah.
Oh, that
And
hurt when she died.
don't spoil it for the
So
people out there. Oh
no,
no.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love people bringing up Helldivers, and it brings us to this core
Hmm.
interesting thing to think about, right? Like, how good is Starship Troopers going to be in VR versus how good of an experience could you have in Helldivers, sat next to your best friend, right? And you both are playing in a session together, and you're talking to each other. You've got all the gesturing that you might be able to have, and it feels
Hmm.
like you're playing couch co-op in Helldivers.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that VR brings to the table that you can have immediately, depending on headset and the system you're doing. How does that compete with what they're able to pull off with Starship Troopers here? Um, it's I will have to see how this lands, and I want to talk about Starship Home. I want to get into this because we've seen a couple comments here that I really want to make a plea
Yeah.
here to our audience and get them to think about the the difficulty of our jobs because
Would you like to?
Don did a review of Starship Home,
I did.
and that review is 3 out of 5. He put 3 out of 5 on that review, and
And
it got better reviews from other places. So we've seen a lot of people praising that idea, and seeing the effort that went into it. And I think if you go to uploadvr.com and find the links, you will see that on uploadvr.com. We've captured it. We've covered the potential of this idea, the effort that they're putting into it, in trying to really give you a mixed reality home, right? And these little plants
hmm
that you go around and water around you. But I want to specifically call out two comments here. So let's see. We've got where were the two comments here? Daniel Leeper saying they had a similar issue to Sampler 19. They couldn't press the start button. They tried a few times and then refunded it. And then Sampler up above, does someone have a hint to get Starship Home running? It doesn't start after preparing the room over and over again. I'm
hmm
kind of stuck in a loop. Um, I, I have to call out those comments because Don went and spent hours and hours with this game, completed the game, and then wrote a review, gave it a 3 out of 5, and then felt guilty about it and started second guessing himself. And
Yeah, I mean,
uh,
a little bit.
I want that's this is real talk here. I mean, like, this is the thoughts going through his head as he's trying to write up a take on this product. And we're obviously in active discussions with Creature. They debuted several of their projects with the Upload VR showcase earlier this year. You go look at Maestro. Looks like an incredible experience. I talked about Laser Dance earlier in this program. They have a they have an all-star team over at Creature of developers who have worked on some of the most innovative, coolest projects you can possibly imagine. And that team took it upon themselves to say, you know what? We loved room scale VR. It was cool. Let's go see what room scale mixed reality looks like. Let's go to this design space and try it out. What is actually possible? And I think what we saw with Starship Home, I think what our viewers here are giving us real talk on, the thing that weighed on Don Hopper's brain as he was hitting publish on this and seeing what everyone else was saying about this game is, how do you balance the fact that Meta has not finished the tools for mixed reality development for the developers to build on? That you guys are encountering the design limits of what one of the best development teams on the planet, the most experienced teams on the planet to build on these tools were able to do with the tools and the way that they're changing under their feet. Don, I've talked for a while here. I'll go look at the comments
Yeah.
to see how they're responding.
No, no, yeah,
Talk to me about
absolutely.
this.
So, and we've talked about this. I mean, we've had, like you said, private offline discussions, and I won't say that I wasn't a little taken back when I started reading all of the other reviews, which is, I probably shouldn't. It's like a review is my personal opinion. I shouldn't really compare that to what others are talking about. But I started wondering, did I review this game too technically? Based on the fact that, maybe that was a little bit out of creature's control, because the bugs that I encountered were significant. And what really threw me aback is that none of the other reviewers, none of the YouTubers who were out there hyping this up mentioned anything negative about this game. They didn't talk about the world, the solidity, and that does bring up, like Ian was talking about, in an experience like this. Okay, especially in mixed reality, virtual reality can be a little more forgiving, but if your walls or your floor are off by just an inch or two, it throws the whole thing into chaos. And what I mean by that is that I liked this game for about the first hour. The first hour felt super polished, and I kind of, in my review, I kind of called it a tech demo on rinse and repeat to become a full game. And that first hour was gold. I didn't have a lot of issues other than some of the, jumping around of some of the non-anchored objects and things like that. But aside from the technical, what I also found in Starship Home was, and I think I saw a comment from Zimtalk on Twitter yesterday, and he reiterated my sentiments on that, that it felt like playing an hour-long tech demo, or just like a shorter tech demo, like a 20-minute tech demo, 8 times in a row. So you literally, Creature has billed this as being the first full mixed reality experience, in which kind of some viewers last week kind of called me out on that as well, saying Demeter, Demeter is actually a full game and it came out before this, and it is mixed reality. But they're calling this the first full mixed reality experience, and I brought up the question. You weren't here, and this would be a good question to get your take on. What defines a full experience? Is it length? Is it completion? And I think the audience hit it best when they said a full experience is defined as having a definitive start, a definitive end, and doing something to get you there. And I agree with that, but if you're doing the exact same sequence of things 8 times in a row, does that still constitute a full experience just because you're changing the backdrop and the dialogue shifts just a hair? So that was another reason why that played into that 3 of 5 scoring as well. So
Arlen, always out there with really thoughtful comments, and I want to appreciate this one as well. I think it's easier to be too forgiving to XR, in as much as there are a lot of XR games are lacking. So the bar subconsciously gets lowered versus the flat screen counterparts. It's easier to give a pass. I saw someone bring up Asgard's Wrath 2 and the 3 that we gave, that one of our reviewers at the time gave Asgard's Wrath
mhm.
2. Um, we don't talk about this much, but a large segment of that reviewer's time was spent in like I think 60 frames per second going through Asgard's Wrath 2.
Mhm.
I think that was their experience, is something like that. It was a very low frame rate experience for them when they were traversing that desert. And you hand that build to one of our reviewers during the review period. You're telling you're telling us that that's what you're going to ship. You can't, and you go and spend 15 hours in a game and you encounter all of these bugs, and are you supposed to say like, oh, this was a really janky experience for you, but it's a
Mhm.
5 out of 5 if it doesn't do that. Right? Like, it doesn't work
No,
that way.
no, not absolutely not.
And I need to reiterate this, just like, again, every reviewer is speaking from their perspective. My job and the job of my team here is to try to ensure the independence of that perspective, allowing them the space to express those views. And that's what you got out of Don, out of this 3 out of 5 Starship Home. And if you go read it, it's thorough. He's explaining the good parts and bad. And I think if you go read his review, as one of our longtime viewers of this show, you can make a decision up after you read his review of, maybe I'll wait around on this one a little while to see if things change. I think that would be a reasonable thing to read Don's review and
Mhm.
take away, is like, uh, this is my recommendation, and I've even talked about this with Creature. We're going to make no promises here, but we're going to watch to see as Meta rolls out future updates for the Horizon operating system, as 72, 73, 74 of the OS roll out. And we're going to look for updates where they say that spatial anchors are improved or room meshing is improved. And again, no promises, but I'm gonna the moment I see that, I'm gonna go ask Don, hey Don, do you have any time in your schedule to go pop open Starship Home again and see if anything feels different to you?
Mhm.
That's
And I
that
will.
that's the best we can do. And I can make no promises that when that day comes to pass, he's gonna have the time, that he's not gonna be on some other task that's going to take him away from doing that. But this is the reality of what we are facing and what the users out there are facing. And I think you did a service to our audience,
Well,
to our
thank you.
viewers. You
I
went
mean,
out there on a limb. You felt the weight of the developers on your back as you're writing it, and you felt the weight of the buyers out there, this audience that needed to
mhm.
know what they were
Well,
going to
and
experience
Ian,
when
you
they
hit the
bought this
nail on the
game.
head. When I review a game, I kind of take myself aback, and I'm not VR gamer dude. I'm not Don. I'm not upload VR video producer. I'm a consumer. I just bought this game. How would this affect me if I bought Starship Home and I'm an hour into it, and all of a sudden I've now had to reset my entire starship twice after the first hour? I have lost 3 of my plants into the wall to the where point I had to walk into my daughter's bedroom and into her closet to grab one of my plants and bring it back into the play space. I mean, those things obviously are, yes, beyond a developer's control at some point, but it gets to that point where if I was to have bought this game as a consumer, I would have refunded it. It's as simple as that. It's like I can't get to the end game if I can't play the game. And to be fair to the developers and to Meta and everybody, and Ian knows this, I factory reset my headset 3 times during this review just to ensure that the problems were not hardware related or, something coming from my end.
You want
So,
I got to talk about a bug I'm experiencing this headset right now, and it's
oh, okay.
really annoying. I've never seen anything like it.
Preach it. Preach
It
it.
is. I've got a portable table here. I've got a little desk
Mhm.
that I've got for my to basically take from room to room. And if I move this desk, it moves my VR experience, my entire
Oh,
world. So it's anchored my positional tracking in this room
whoa.
to this table right here, and I'm currently like, my head's not moving. That's me moving my head by
No, I can
moving
see
my
it.
world, and I don't like that at all. That's a Quest 3 right now. Why is that happening?
Mhm.
Let me make sure travel
Yeah.
mode isn't on.
So yeah, while you're doing that, I'm going to check comments here because I saw one that was a little interesting here. Nathan VRBR, he says, so the new avatars have already been released? Question mark. Well, that's a good question because we were looking for them this morning, and so far I have not been able to find anywhere where we can check out the new avatars. So wondering if that just got released to developers, and we're still waiting for them to put stuff in for that. But at this time, it's definitely something that we are interested to see because obviously we do this show as avatars that are provided through Meta. So might be interesting once David updates the studio to see us in our new skins, so to speak. But
Yeah.
that is a work in progress, and that is not coming anytime soon, unless something easily happens to help David flip that switch. But rest assured, it is something that we are looking into. So,
So Ghost Shot, and I'm seeing this in our like I understand the desire to depend on Metacritic and those like Rotten Tomatoes. I was saved from going to what was it, Borderlands by Rotten
oh,
Tomatoes.
thank
I
you.
was
God,
just
that was
gonna,
horrible.
I was only gonna spend $2 on the ticket because of the way I've got it set up, and that was still too much to pay on to pay on Borderlands, and it saved me. I refunded the ticket and never went to Borderlands. So I get the value of those review scores, but you've got to also respect that like we've tried to find a balance here. We can't serve all the possible audiences out there, and all I can say is we've strengthened this independence of the reviewer over the course of the year, and we've tried to make sure that they really express all the ins and outs here. And like I said, I think you did a wonderful job, Don, of balancing a
Thank you.
lot of very, very, very hard things to keep in your brain, to try to get across here. And as we've said here, we're going to keep watching this, and we're not going to take shots at devs just because they screwed up a launch plan, right? We're merely going to try to express this is what happens if you as a consumer go and try this game. You're going to like it for these reasons, you're going to hate it for these reasons. I hated it for these
Mhm.
reasons, I liked it for these reasons. It's a pretty simple breakdown when you get down to the core of how that works. But we're not giving free passes out, and we're also not going to take cheap shots either. And
No, never.
that was a very hard rope for us to wave with this game that was trying to use Meta's tools. And I think our audience understands. I think we've broken it down here really well for you. That Creature was stepping out on a limb here, trying to innovate at the very edge of what Meta's tools were capable of, and it caused a number of issues for
And
a number of people, not just our reviewer out there.
and as I said last week on the show when we were talking about mixed reality, keep in mind it is still early days. It is the wild west out there for these developers right now. They are just learning all of these new tools and Meta as well. I mean, I'm going to even give them a slight break in the fact that this is super super hard to do. All this computer vision and I mean, like if you guys see the video from, my room is not like four walls, So I mean, I've got columns and pillars and interesting architecture and little nooks and crannies and side walls that just jut out into nothing. So I mean, in my particular space, it might be very difficult to map that room, with everything that I've got going on. So will we get there? Yes, we will get there. The spatial anchoring will become solid. I mean, we watched this in the beginnings of VR on Oculus Share. I mean, watching developers play with the new tools that they had just been given for the very first time. So is it going to happen tomorrow? No. Mm-mm. I think we're going to see a lot more experimentation. I think we are going to see some more ambitious mixed reality titles coming forward into 2025 for sure. Nothing specific to talk about at this point, but buckle up. I really think that mixed reality devs are going to find their footing soon. Meta's going to get those tools, and we are going to start seeing a new genre of gaming that is going to bend people's minds like it never has before.
Yeah,
So
I like Mr. Mycelium's comment. Imagine trying to shift your company to mixed reality as your primary product and not giving the proper API access to access the camera feed of the device you're selling this idea on. Um, let's see, John,
Gumberto,
being sick
thank
from
you.
home, from work, let me watch you live. Great discussion as
Get
always.
well.
Thank you for the donation. And yes, do get well. Thank you to everyone who watches us in
Yes.
wherever you are in the world, whatever weather you are dealing with. You are in VR on a regular basis and enjoy what this headset brings to you. And we understand it. And thank you for tuning in to us over this trip. Do want to encourage you to become a member and support our work directly. You can become a member on
Please.
uploadvr.com. That removes the ads from the page if you become a member over there. And it also supports the journalism that
Hmm.
we do. And as I've said in a couple different places, we're watching this next phase, and as soon as we can afford to grow our team and get more people out there to get you better opinions, stronger opinions, not even better opinions, just deeper opinions, right? Like deeper takes, deeper reporting. We will have that for you as soon as we can afford it. And your support as members is a big part of making that happen. So thank you to John for that
Please.
donation right there. And thank you to all of our members. Don, what do we have coming up next?
So, I think this was a good time to transition over, but I did want to you just one comment that just popped up here, and I really hope that's not the case. So Jack B here is saying PC versus mobile, PC VR versus standalone, immersed versus mixed. The next tribal fight will be MR headsets versus AR glasses. And Jack, I really hope not. I really hope that developers kind of see augmented and mixed realities as synonymous and something that they can really work towards to get those experiences. Like I said, working on both your mixed reality headsets and your upcoming AR glasses. So
Let's talk. Let's get into that when we get into the pets. I have a really good angle
yeah,
on
because
that.
we're
I
about to
want
get
to.
there. Yeah, we're about to get there.
Yeah. So what else we got up before that?
No, that's it.
All right.
We were going to do Starship Home, and then we were going to kind of let you go wild and talk about the pets, and you know,
Well, I appreciate that thinking there, and you're describing a lot of the headlines out there that are currently forming. You saw we have a takedown here on an editorial written by David Heaney that pulls from UploadVR's exclusive reporting, my exclusive reporting, along with this team, where I went face to face with Michael Abrash, the researcher that Meta hired away from Valve a decade ago to go and lead the research efforts at Meta. So this is the person that they hired away from Valve to come and figure out what should our future look like here at Meta. How do we build this? What's the shape of the future? What do the headsets look like? And we have this exclusive reporting where I went face to face with Abrash 2 years ago and put a video, put a question in front of him, recorded it with my phone, and then put it on our website. And it lays it out in plain terms. And David then went and repeated that in his editorial. Um, we're going to have both VR headsets and AR glasses in the future. These are parallel products that complement each other in different ways. However, that doesn't mean the software that you're going to enjoy in each product line will be anything like the other product line, like the software in the other product line. Yes, they might share the same underlying technology, whether it's um, tracking or even the operating system in part. All that is going that's the end of whatever similarities are shared between these two product lines because of the inherent differences between the product lines. You've got these AR glasses that need to run all day. They need to operate on their own and not pull from the devices around from them too much. And then they also need to work in sunlight and out in the world as you're walking around. All these constraints that you do not have on a VR headset back at home that doesn't compete with the outside light, that gives you full control over pass through. Go read that editorial from David Heaney. I'm sure we're going to discuss it more on our VR download on Thursday. But that you've got a lot of people out there that are looking at this fresh today and going, those glasses are the future. The VR headsets are clearly not, and the VR headsets are clearly a stepping stone to those AR glasses. That's an easy assumption to make. It's easy to look at a distance
Oh yeah.
as that's what's happening, but it isn't. And you're making a mistake. And we've got a headline on UploadVR.com that HoloLens 2 just shut down. Magic Leap is in its is laying people off and trying to get through its last little, trying to figure out what to do with its last pieces over there at Magic Leap. That's, those are billions of dollars invested in see-through optics and building a platform and trying to push it through. And it's still years away. What Orion still showed is it's still years away from achieving this. Snapchat spectacles and pets. So about 3 weeks ago, I got to see a Peridot inside of the Snapchat spectacles, and Snapchat spectacles. The field of view of those AR glasses is about 50 degrees.
Yeah.
All indications are from what Meta just showed off with Orion is that it's very likely that because of cost reasons, they're going to have to walk back the field of view from the Orion glasses to something smaller in whatever consumer hardware they ship. Well, we've got that product with us today, or pretty close to it, in the Snapchat spectacles. You've got a product that is lower field of view, and it's shipping today for over $1,000, and you got to get a monthly subscription with
I was gonna
with
say, and
with
there's a
Snapchat to do it.
subscription with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and you got to send it back to them if you decide not to get it. But that's what Snapchat is able to ship today. What I have to convey to this audience, uh, and this audience alone is going to be really good at understanding this. The Peridot creature is about this big, and it can
Hmm.
go stand on the floor over there about 6 feet or 9 feet away from you. And the Peridot, this little creature that's about this big, looks like it is there. It looks, you are convinced it is right there. Its head isn't cut off, its tail isn't cut off. It's right there. And you look away and you see an arrow basically pointing to where the creature is. And let's say you start
Hmm.
looking over here. You start looking over here, and the creature walks over to be in your field of view. That works. You could build an entire operating system around that. You could build a really compelling version of Pokemon Go that works in glasses everywhere around that experience. It won't be great when you look away. It kind of stinks that the field of view is cut off, but it's not like it was before. It works. If you have that much intelligence on
Yeah.
your content always repositioning itself in front of you, you could have a really, really compelling experience. But what you won't get anytime soon is a really great remapping of your entire environment. You won't, you can't take that little creature and put it in a completely immersive space. You can't take it out of your world and then put it into another
Oh, I
world.
see what you're talking about, bringing
The
it from the AR to something else.
but that is something you can do in a VR headset with mixed reality. So you could have a little pet,
Okay.
um, similar size as the Peridot. In fact, it could be a Peridot. It could be the exact same as the creature that I played with in the Snapchat glasses, and it is sitting over there on the ground in the exact same way. Right? It's perfectly uh, framed. It's not cut off in any way, and it looks more solid and higher resolution than it does on the Snapchat spectacles. And now, what you do, because you're in a VR headset with mixed reality, you hit a button somewhere in the environment and take that pet outside. And I say the word outside because outside in this uh, respect means
Man.
putting yourself in a virtual environment, taking the pet to a virtual environment outside. You're taking the pet to a virtual environment, and that virtual environment just happens to be an outside walk. You can't do that on AR glasses with limited field of view. You won't get the sense that your pet is
Got it.
running through a field. You won't get the sense that you are in that field with the pet. You have to physically go to a field and let the pet
Mhm.
run around in order for that to work on AR glasses. So you have games, you have characters, you have software that can work on the AR glasses, and it will be fantastic. But it's not going to be the same. It's going to have a different shape. It's going to do different things for you than what the mixed reality is going to do for you.
Man, that's interesting. So, and I think like you kind of mentioned earlier, kind of back ending just a minute to field of view. It really is. I don't think we're going to see that happen until we get that field of view up. And that 70-degree field of view in Orion, well, yeah, that's in a $10,000 prototype using like some special lenses that Meta had to grow crystals to make. I mean, this is insane kind of stuff. So using what's currently available for mass marketing, that they're going to be able to get that cost down, then yes, we are going to go back down to that 50-ish field of view that has been prevalent in a lot of the birdbath optic glasses, and a lot of the AR systems that are just now coming online. So I don't know. That all reminds me of kind of, we were talking about 90s VR earlier. 90s VR used to be billed as, how we have FOV today. When you bought a headset back then, it was billed as the equivalent of seeing X size TV from this far away, because it's a square that just would hang in air in front of you. And it wasn't until that square kind of came into frame and we got to that 70, 80, 90-degree field of view that Abrash talked about all those years as being the sweet spot to really be able to feel presence, that we had that in VR. So I don't really think that's going to happen in AR until we get to that field of view as well.
So Ghost Shot saying the military is working on AR glasses for targeting in the field. Mapping is much further than you realize. We are watching the space. Military, the U.S. military
Hmm.
has a project called IVAS,
Hmm. I've
and
asked.
they're working with Hololens and Microsoft on trying to realize exactly what you're discussing there. I think we need to watch that space very intently this year because uh, there are benefits to a VR headset that has incredible computer vision attached to it. If you can imagine computer vision of the kind you're talking about attached to a wide field of view headset VR that you could flip up anytime power is lost really quickly, you can imagine VR headsets potentially coming after the IVAS program over the long term. So that is an area we're going to be watching very intently to see if anything changes there. And honestly, if something like that comes to pass, it's going to be devastating for all of the products in AR.
Oh yeah.
This is the thing that has held or anchored the idea that AR is going to eventually come to fruition long term. Is that for like police and military use cases, you don't want to have a device that becomes a blindfold anytime it loses power. Well, there's still trade-offs there to think about, and uh, there's still potentially arguments to be made that VR headsets that block out the world with really stellar computer vision powering them might make people more effective than any other way. But we're going to watch that space. And again, that's another discussion for VR download that we will get into with David Heaney. He's watching that space incredibly close, and
Oh, big time.
we will
Yes.
have expert deep reporting on that before a lot of other places. So thank you to everyone for following us on that, and I can guarantee that we are going to stay on that story and follow it into the future. What else we got here, Don?
Ian, unless we've got anything else on the AR or the virtual pets, I think we kind of reached the end of the agenda for today.
Yep, Ghost Shot. I do not like military application for VR. VR, AI, and robotics should be used for space, not killing, in my opinion. It's the sharpest double-edged sword we ever made. I this is a game
Mhm.
show. This is a game show. We talk about video games here. We talk about things that we
Yeah.
enjoy. But you are not wrong, Go Shot.
No,
That
not at
is
all.
true. That is part of our work, and it is part of what we do. And for the tangents we go on from time to time, that I myself go on,
Mhm.
it's informed by the double-edged sword that you are referring to. We do not, as much as we get the benefits, we get the negatives here, hand in hand with this technology, and we need to be real and informative to our audience about the double edges of that sword and where they are cutting. So
I
that
think
is,
David
yeah.
No, I was gonna say, I think David Bigelow here, he's got it perfect. Every tech will be used everywhere it can be used, military and adult content. And that's where we see a lot of innovation from this tech is the minute that it gets into the military and the adult world, then, we start seeing the tech explode. So it is a double-edged sword. And I agree with him. But at the same time, it fosters that
I
innovation to push the tech forward.
I mean, I had a really awful thought. I was talking to someone who is affected by the flooding in the United States recently, and this is a really messed up thing. But floodwaters can take away your TV,
Hmm.
um, but your HMD will probably be in a bag with you, and it will go with you wherever you are. It's a really interesting thing to think about, the advantages of having a portable head mounted display with you that can't be taken away except by its loss of power eventually, right? That's a change in thought and a change in behavior that is only beginning to be understood. And Don's touching on some of the things that we don't ever talk about on this show: adult use cases of VR and military use cases of VR, and those are all happening left and right, and they're real major use cases for all this stuff. And it's like uh, it's all happening, right? You're going to have those very difficult discussions. Your job now over the next few months is to go back at those people who are saying, "I want the Zuckerberg Orion glasses. I'm going to go get the Ray Bans," and you have to tell them, "No, no, VR headsets are more useful right now." So good luck to you on those conversations with those viewers. Come back on Thursday for VR Download with David Heaney and I as we catch up and really get into the latest. I think we'll probably discuss Immersed a little bit, as well as what I saw at Connect again deeper. We'll discuss a lot of this stuff more broadly. Thank you to Don Hopper, Henry Stockdale, and our freelancers out there who are doing incredible work. There was a very nice piece from Kelly out there where she
Yes,
attended a voting rally in Horizon Worlds and
that
gave
was
us a
really
little
cool.
rundown of what a voting rally looks like in Horizon Worlds. And I put out a call over the weekend to get a bunch of developers sending me work in progress clips because I wanted to bring back the concept of Screenshot Saturday in some way, shape, or form. Screenshot Saturday has died over there on Twitter. Those good vibes that devs get from sharing their ideas that are still early, still incomplete, are gone. And I think this audience that we have out there in the audience understands, like, when we set them up, when we set up things right, you guys know to expect work in progress when we say what a work in progress is. So I'm hoping to bring a whole bunch of those work in progress clips in front of this audience in the very near future, and we'll just run through them one after a time, looking at some of these very, very early ideas from devs. I saw the most ridiculous ideas sent at me for this call out, and I can't wait to package it together for our audience
So
out
fun.
there. Thank you to Beck for putting this show together. Our broadcaster out there in Canada, thank you, and thank you to our audience. We'll see you in the future. Tune in and please support our work by becoming a member or a patron. Thank you to our commenters as well. We love the discussion. We'll see you later.
See you in the next one.